All right, gang. So I'm just gonna get right into it. Andre Carpathy was on a podcast in the last week or so, and one of the things that he said is that we're at least a decade away from AGI, and that current agentic capabilities don't match the hype of industry expectations and all that fun stuff. And first, it's really interesting, kind of the chilling effect or the hype effect that some people seem to have on the conversation, on the public conversation. So if Sam Altman says something, that it completely distorts the noosphere, the conversation of the exocortex. Andre Carpathy has that capability as well. Elon Musk and a few other people. It's just, and what I want to say is that the public conversation, what you see on YouTube and Twitter and wherever else, that is, of course, just the loudest speakers. That's not the silent majority. But at the same time, it seems like that some of these guys have a very disproportionate effect on the short-term conversation. Just like any stock market, right? Someone says something in the stock market, goes up and goes down. So there's kind of like the social equivalent of the stock market effect happening. But then the market will kind of normalize over time. So I just wanted to add my perspective on this news, so that the social stock market will continue to normalize and integrate everything that is going on. So, I think there's two primary claims that Andre made that I want to address. So number one, AGI is a decade away, and number two, that the agentic capabilities don't match industry expectations. And so the top line is that. That is not the reality for most industries. So when he's saying that, what the industry expects, he's probably focusing exclusively on Silicon Valley big tech players. If I had to guess, obviously I can't read his mind, and I might be missing some context, but my perspective, and also I'm gonna use the term we, and it's not the royal we. I don't have a mouse in my pocket. When I say we, I'm referring to like me, my colleagues, my peers, my friends, people that I'm working with, clients, consultations, that sort of stuff. So it's just my network. What we are seeing is that yes, in industries there's always a few executives that really get it, but we are at the very beginning of industries getting it. And when I say industries, I mean everything from coal to running cities and so on and so forth. So large organizations are the kind of people that I and my network work with. And yes, in some cases there are executives who don't get it. There's plenty of executives who do, but we're at a phase of adoption or integration where, for instance, most employees in an organization that has rolled out something like Copilot, they're like, oh yeah, I used it to help write an email. And that's about as far as most of them have gotten. At the same time, within the same organization, you have people using AI, all kinds of tools. They're subscribed to everything and they're using it all day, every day. And then you have employees that haven't heard of it, haven't touched it, and that sort of thing. So we're at a very skewed, asymmetric level of adoption within these large organizations. And the same organization might be deploying agents for some things, but only 1% of the organization even sees that agent doing anything or sees the value realized by that agent. And that's not to say that the agent isn't valuable, but in the same way, when you have a large organization, there's people doing stuff in HR and legal that you never see or never hear. And we're not at the level of saturation where AI is like your computer or like your smartphone. Many people watching this channel, some of you are older than me, some of you are younger than me. Some of you will remember the uptake of the internet or cloud computing, and then after that, or a similar time frame, remember the uptake of smartphones. So, virtualization, cloud computing, smartphones. There was a time when they were just a nice toy, right? Where it was like, oh, that's an interesting new possibility. But at the very beginning of the smartphone era, it was the crackberry, right? The Blackberries, as they called it, crackberries, because they were addictive. Now everyone has a smartphone. So if you had the BlackBerry Enterprise server, the Bez server, back in the the aughts, that was like cutting edge stuff, but it was just a nice to have. Now it is mandatory that you have a mobile device strategy, that you have a mobile device management strategy, and that sort of thing. Now, of course, that has taken 15 plus years to get to that level of saturation. Although I will say that 2009 to 2025, it reached that level of saturation 5 years ago. So let's just say it took a decade. AI is not going to take a full decade to get to that point of saturation. But at the other hand, the term AGI is utterly meaningless to most businesses. They're like, okay, whatever. It sounds like science fiction. The state of the industry is that most companies, most organizations, not even enterprises, just most organizations, whether they're nonprofits, whether they're governments, whether they're enterprises, they are not making maximum use of the AI that is available today. So whatever, there's a huge gap between what they expect from machines and what is actually capable. And so this is one of the core messages that I wanted to drive home, is that from the vantage point of people like Andre Carpathy and Sam Altman and all the researchers at Google and OpenAI that tweet a lot, what they're seeing is like, okay, they see inflated expectations that are still above reality. And so the expectations that they are looking at is like, it hasn't fully cured cancer yet, even though it's helping, and it's helping make drugs. It hasn't fully solved all math problems and all physics problems, even though it's helping. So their expectations are like, head in the cloud. And so reality is below their expectations. But for most of the rest of the world, including, the Fortune 500 companies and big cities out there and other governments and other nonprofits, their expectations are below where reality is. So you have these low expectations because they're like, oh, well, it still hallucinates, or legal said I'm not allowed to do this yet. And then the reality, meanwhile, is continuing to jump by leaps and bounds. And so it'll take a while for these cultures to shift. And it's not just a matter of, there's all kinds of points of friction. People, and this is with or without the threat of AI, because some people still are afraid it's going to take their job. But even without that, people are like, there's another tool you want me to learn, right? This is some other thing, Heck, I've been at companies where, if people like, we were making a transition from using Skype to Teams, and people were so bent out of shape over that. It's like, you mean there's another message platform? I have to check email and Skype and Teams and Slack? Oh my God, it's the worst thing ever. So when you show up to an organization and you say, here's a new tool, they're like, my brain is already full of tools. You made me learn email and smartphones and whatever else the company uses. And of course, but the average company has about 1,100 internal apps. And that's not hyperbole. A large company will have about 1,100 internal applications that they support. Sometimes more, sometimes less. But that's even non-tech companies, right? Like the auto parts store that I used to work for had more than that, had like 1,500 or 1,600 internal apps that they supported. So people are very, very fatigued about learning new tools. And from their perspective, artificial intelligence is just another tool that you're throwing at them, that you're throwing on the pile. Even if the executive leadership knows, hey, in 5 to 10 years, this is going to transform literally it's going to touch every aspect of our business, and it's going to be as ubiquitous as electricity and computers. Many CEOs, CIOs, CTOs, they know that, they see that it's coming, but their perspective, again, they have a closer appreciation for what reality is capable of than the average employee or even the average middle manager. And so this perspective, the whole point here is when you look at the difference between what you want or what you think is possible versus what you can get today, just pay attention to the speaker, because head in the cloud, Silicon Valley tech bros, AI bros, people have started calling me an AI bro, I guess so, fine, whatever. I try and keep my expectations right-sized to reality, but when someone makes an off-the-cuff remark like what Andre Carpathy did, and he's not going to stop and qualify it. He's not going to say, well, my perspective as an AI researcher who worked at Tesla and has done this, this, and this is my perspective, and here's my expectations, and here's the reality. He's not going to say all that stuff. But when you have I just saw a statistic that it was like 58% of first-year grads are not finding jobs. And a big reason for that, obviously, the economy is looks like it's about to implode. We're probably about to have a recession over the next 12 months. But at the same time, a big reason that grads are not getting jobs is because the ladder is being pulled up by artificial intelligence. A lot of people are saying, you know what, if AI can do this, why hire a human, where the AI starts at a higher level and it's much cheaper. So when Andre says, oh, well, it's not meeting industry expectations, I call BS on that, because I think it's already exceeding industry expectations. And again, industry expectations are very low because, and this is something that a lot of people in my audience and elsewhere point out, is that whenever a study comes out that shows AI can't do this, it's gone through the academic cycle, meaning they're looking at technology that's 2 years old. And at that point, it's completely irrelevant. It's like, yes, as of 2023, these AIs couldn't do those things because that's when the actual work of the study was done. And then it's been under peer review and all that sort of stuff for the last 2 years. So the academic cycle is way, way, way too slow. But unfortunately, that's what a lot of people read, including academics, including enterprise leaders and other organizational leaders. And actually, that's a big reason that I get the clients and contacts that I do, is because they realize that even Forbes and Harvard Business Review, even they're out of date. So they need to come to something that is cutting edge and reacting in real time. So that's what I'm here to tell you, is that whatever your role happens to be, whether you're a student or a professor or a business leader or even a truck driver, I see you. I have I think it's about a quarter to a third of my audience is blue collar work, because you guys are curious too. So everyone wants to know. So I'm trying to give you that kind of like no rose tinted glasses and no doomer tinted glasses. Like, this is just where we're at. We're at the very beginning of the corporate uptake, the enterprise uptake. And it really started this year, I think, because companies like Microsoft have their vetted products, namely Copilot. Copilot is often the first touch point that a lot of people see. And when you have these large organizations, whether it's a university, whether it is an enterprise or a government, a lot of times they just kind of take whatever their technology partner or their technology provider gives them. And Microsoft, for better or worse, is one of the biggest corporate organizational software providers on the planet. Now, personally, I see this as a good thing, because left to their own devices, many of these organizations would be more hesitant or more tepid about adopting things like Copilot and seeing AI. But when it's like, hey, you have Office 365 and you've got it licensed for 20,000 or 30,000 people, guess what? It comes with a basic Copilot license. So then it's just a matter of vetting it with your legal team, with your InfoSec team, and away they go. But on that topic, one of the things that we see out there is that even when people have access to it, a lot of people are afraid to use it because they're like, I don't want to get in trouble. Is this secure? And so they haven't had a full onboarding session with a town hall where someone from legal says, by the way, here's legal's perception of artificial intelligence. Here's what you can use it for. It has not been blessed, right? As my father-in-law has said, no one has made the sign of the cross over it and said, yes, this is consecrated. Go forth and be happy. So that's a big thing that organizations are missing, is that formalized onboarding where they say HR has signed off on it, legal has signed off of it, InfoSec has signed off of it. Yes, it has been blessed. It's been anointed, and everyone is happy. It's copacetic, and go have fun with it. And that's true of all new technologies. Every single new technology, whether it's chat, whether it's email, whether it's smartphones, people do boneheaded stuff with new technology until it becomes normalized. And as long as it takes for these cultures to normalize and ingest and metabolize new technologies, the underlying technology is going to continue to improve. So by the time your average typical organization has caught up, we're going to have AGI or ASI or whatever happens to come. And on the topic of AGI, it is an increasingly useless term, and I've said this before, Sam Altman has said this, it's not a useful term, is because it's an imaginary term. It divorces people. So speaking of expectations versus reality, people have, and everyone has a different model of what AGI means in their head, and they're like, well, we haven't achieved it yet. We haven't achieved this figment of my imagination yet, and it makes them miss the forest for the trees. And this is one of the reasons why I enjoy working with businesses in there, because they're like, I don't care what you call it. It's a name. It's a label. What can it actually do today, and where is it going tomorrow? And you say, okay, here's objectively speaking the capabilities that it has today, and number two, objectively speaking, here's how fast those capabilities are increasing. If at some point it goes from AI to AGI to ASI, most CEOs who are paying attention don't care. They don't give a crap. They're like, okay, whatever. It's going to replace some human labor at some point in the future. It's already replacing some human labor now. Bottom line is, it's better, faster, cheaper, and safer than humans at some tasks. That's all they care about. And so, I've been reading a lot of Ray Dalio and Charlie Munger, and one of the things that these guys drive home is do not delude yourself with labels. I mean, they don't say it quite in those terms, but a big part of their work is how to avoid self-delusion. And self-delusion comes from using your imagination before reality. And reality says, this is where we're at, and it's getting better. And imagination says, well, we haven't achieved some magical, miraculous state yet that is pure science fiction. I call it a mental archetype. AGI is an archetype in that it represents the full potential of machines. And so when I say archetype, think of Prometheus, right? It is a literal deity as far as your brain is concerned, because it represents this omnissiah future of potential. So if you think of it in terms of an allegory or a metaphor or a mental archetype, that's really what AGI is. That's why it's such a Rorschach test. If you imagine what is the maximally potent machine that we can create, some people think of it as a terrible, New Testament or original Testament kind of God, where it's going to be vindictive and very destructive, and other people think it's going to save you, right? So that people have the same reactions to AGI that they have to literal deities because it is an allegory. And an allegory has no business value, right? That's the point. So from an objective standpoint, from the perspective of the military, of the government, of enterprises, of universities, the term AGI is utterly and completely useless because it creates this figment of your imagination that's off on the horizon and causes people to miss the forest for the trees. And I really think that is kind of the crux of the argument that I have against when Carpathy and people say, oh, AGI is a decade away. It doesn't matter. Look at what it's doing today. Look at the trends of where it's going, the rate of adding capabilities. Those are things that we can put real numbers on. Those are things that objectively exist. All right, end rant. See y'all later.